He's a spokesperson for the disenfranchised and the dispossessed. And now more than ever, he has stepped out to the limelight to carry the battle for working men and women. Brothers and sisters, the president of the AFL-CIO, Richard Trumka.
Williams, a great leader. And then I want to say thank you, nurses. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your guts. Thank you for standing up for all workers. Like our brothers and sisters in Madison and Columbus and Indianapolis and hundreds of other cities across America, you're standing up and you're standing together, side by side, for our common dream. You're standing up for all American working families, and you're standing up for all children and grandchildren. I want to say this: we love and we appreciate the way that you fight for your patients. We appreciate the way you fight for quality health care for every American. We appreciate the way you fight for safe staffing. And we appreciate the way you fight for decent working conditions for nursing homes. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to be with you today. And I want you to know this: your strike is very, very powerful. It's important to Washington, and it's important to everybody who seeks health care in America, and everyone who earns a paycheck. Today, we have power. Together, we have power. And because of your power, that's why MedStar has tried to silence you, but they will not succeed. That's why MedStar threatened you with a 5-day lockout. Because MedStar executives want to scare you into silence. They want you to be quiet about nurse-patient ratio. They want you to be quiet about your ideas to improve patient health and safety. They want you to be quiet. Now let me ask you a question. Are we going to let MedStar make us be quiet? You better believe you won't be silenced. You'll never lower your standards. You know, listen to this. One night, 2 weeks ago, only 2 nurses were scheduled to work in labor and delivery. 2 nurses. That night, each nurse carried a patient load of 6 women and 6 babies. 12 patients. 6 moms, 6 newborns. Now, thank God there were no emergencies. Thank God there were no tragedies that night. My question is, why were only 2 nurses scheduled? Is it because MedStar is out of money? No! That's right. Last year, MedStar banked $142 million in profits. And the company holds $1.5 billion in cash reserve. That's billions with a B. Now, hospital executives just thought 2 nurses would do, because 2 is cheaper than 3. And without your voice, 2 nurses would be scheduled in labor and delivery until there is an emergency, until something goes terribly wrong, until a tragedy occurs, and that's not going to happen, because we're going to stay together and make sure that it doesn't happen. Instead of paying attention to patient health care, MedStar CEO Ken Salmon and Washington Hospital President John Sullivan are putting profits ahead of patients, profits ahead of health care, profits ahead of everything. They want to cut safety. They want to cut pay. They told you that your wages should drop because the recession brought down the price of nursing. You see, to them you're just a commodity, like soybeans or oil. But to your patients, you're the difference between recovery and non-recovery. And I have a question. What about the price of CEOs? Surely their wages ought to drop. They caused this mess that we're all in, right? So last year, 5 of the top 20 highest paid CEOs in this country were from MedStar. You see, the words and actions of MedStar executives are unconscionable. They enjoy rich profits, earn from the patients, and earn from the health care that you deserve. Well, here's our message to them. Our patients and our nurses deserve better than what you're giving them. You see, the truth is, there's no cut deep enough and no bonus big enough to satisfy the greed in their hearts. Well, we're done with that kind of business as usual, and we won't back down. Now, that's easier said than done. And I want to acknowledge how hard it is to say no to a bad contract, because I've been there. Giving up a paycheck, risking a lockout. It's not easy. And I want to salute you for standing up and for not backing down. For standing up for good health care access across America. For standing up for nurses and other workers across America. So on behalf of 12 million members of the AFL-CIO, I want to say thank you today, thank you tomorrow, thank you next week, and we will stand shoulder to shoulder with you as long as it takes, because we're not backing down. As long as it takes, we'll be there. God bless you.
Now, do you know, is there any doubt in your mind as what the result is going to be? No! Victory is ours. If not today, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, the next day. But as sure as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, victory is ours. So we will take our president's admonition. We will stand together. We will stand up until justice is done. And MedStar puts people and patients over profit. Let me hear you say, patients over profit. Patients over profit. Patients over profit. And our next speaker is a... You sound good, you sound good. Our next speaker is someone who has been fighting for decades. The corporate greed, corporate America, and who's been fighting for the little people over the profiteers. So brothers and sisters, let's give it up. Let's hear Congressman Kucinich.
Where all of the power that you have as you come together is to state not only what your just rights are, but what the rights are of the patient. Now, Mr. Williams, a moment ago, talked about profit. Many of you already know this, but the last CEO of MedStar retired with over $11 million in pension benefits, right? Now, this is instructive because this is at the same time, that's right, at the same time, MedStar was asking, or rather demanding, that nurses take unilateral cuts in pay. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, you have a staff that went out there and they did a survey in a hospital. I used to work in a hospital. I was an orderly for a while. I was a surgical technician for a while. I know what it means if you have pressure on nurses. I know that if you don't have enough nursing staff, that hurts the patient. I saw the report where you had 103 incidents, at least 103 incidents, that put patients at risk, and that 86% of those incidents, you identified inadequate staffing, and most of them are patients that were seriously ill. So here, we not only need MedStar to come back to the bargaining table, but we need MedStar to come back to cardiac care, critical care, general medical and surgical care, and come back with nurses. Come back with nurses. Come back to the patient. Rick Trumka, what a great leader for the AFL-CIO and labor. And you also have the president of the laborers here, Terry O'Sullivan. Let's give it up for him. One final note, all over this country, workers are watching. They're watching events in Wisconsin. They're watching events in Ohio, where I came from, where last week I was at the State House with thousands of workers. They're watching events here in Washington. They're seeing these signs of workers demanding rights not only for themselves, but for patients. This is an important moment in history. This is a moment where we must stand up and speak out, where we must claim the basic rights that workers have, that we have a right to collective bargaining, that we have a right to union, that we have a right to strike, that we have a right to decent wages and benefits, that there's a right to a secure retirement, there's a right to a safe workplace, there's a right for safety for patients, and it is nurses that are in the front line here in Washington. It is nurses who are standing up for patients. It is nurses who are demanding justice. Stand for justice. Stand for the patient. Keep going. Thank you. Nurses United
Will never be defeated. Nurses United.